YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now then, on today's video we're going to be trying to build a little scale trailer. Now long story short, over the years I've managed to accrue a load of bits. I mean, just for example, we've got a JJRC Jeep chassis here, got a B24 load bed here, spare. I've got a few tyres knocking around. I'm sure there's an axle somewhere. Now I was wondering the other day, what can I do with all these bits and pieces that I've managed to accrue over the years? There's not quite enough to make an RC out of, but what I think we might be able to do with them is we might be able to create some sort of little scale trailer that we can use to pull around. So that's precisely what we're going to do in today's video. We're going to try and construct a little scale trailer out of all these bits, and hopefully I'm going to show you how to do it. Right then, our first job is going to be to modify our JJRC chassis here. Now we're going to remove the servo board completely, and what we're going to do is we're going to pinch the two chassis rails off to form a point, so that will hopefully allow us to fit our hitch in by some way, shape or form. So we're going to go ahead and do that, remove the board, and then we're going to get the Dremel out, and we're going to make a couple of little cuts here and there so we can bend the chassis rails into a point to form our hitch. Now that our servo board's out, we're going to get our Dremel here with a little cutting disc, and we're going to make two slits. We're not going to go all the way through the chassis rail, but we're just going to slit the top of the U portion of the beam, if you like. Probably a bit more clearer when I've done it. Now also, if you've got some eye protection, wear it, because I've come unstuck before by using these little Dremels, and they're only tiny little bits that come off, but they go absolutely everywhere. So if you've got any eye protection, make sure you wear them. But that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. I'm going to just put two little slits in each side of the chassis, and that will allow us to bend the two together. Right then, I've cut the four little slots, and hopefully this should allow us to bend the chassis to form a point. So here goes. This is where it all goes Pete Tong. So just, if you do it gently, you just got to sort of tease it into the correct position so it's sort of equal. But that's the sort of shape we're going for. So hopefully it can take a little bit of time and perseverance. What we want to do is try and, that's it. So that there we go, that's the shape we're after. So our hitch sort of forms a point. Now our next job is basically to put a bolt through the end of the two chassis rails just to keep it secured. We're then going to turn our attention to the bed. Now I'm not sure if we're going to keep the mud guards, because the mud guards won't fit unless I either chop the mud guards off or chop part of the end of the trailer off here. So what I might do is cut these loops off with the Dremel, because I think this bar here will then slide in the back of the two mud flaps. I'd like to keep the mud flaps actually, so I think we're going to do that. I've just answered my own question. We could cut these off. So I've basically cut, filed and sanded those two loops off, so that bumper now fits neatly behind the two mud guards on the trailer bed. So there we go. I need to find a rear axle. We've got our tyres lying around, so that's not a problem. I need to find a rear axle, some suspension for this. I think I've got some WPL bits and pieces left over. And then we're going to turn our attention to the front again, and we're going to find a way of attaching our trailer hitch into the front of our chassis here. So it's starting to look like a bit like a trailer now. So anyway, I'll go ahead, see if I can find these suspension bits, and we'll take it from there. Right, so I've got my rear axle. I found a load of suspension bits and pieces that I can use to hang on the chassis. What we're going to do is, on the rear axle, we need to get rid of this shaft obviously, and we don't need this little gear inside, so we're going to remove that. And what we're going to do is just basically blank off the end with a screw or a bolt or something. So I'm going to split the two halves of the axle and get rid of this, and start building the remainder of the suspension. Right then, that's our rear axle with its suspension fitted. It's a WPL axle and suspension. Now if you didn't already know this, JGRC and WPL bits and pieces are interchangeable in most cases. So although we're using a JGRC chassis, it'll happily accept a WPL rear axle. Now all we have to do is just hook our leaf springs into the suspension hangers on the chassis. That's a bit fiddly. Oh god, there we go. There we go. Put 2 screws in the front there, and there we go, there's our suspension. Right, let's attach our chassis to the trailer bed. I just want to mock it up at the moment, just make sure everything's okay. I'll just stick the wheels on briefly, just to see what they look like. Make sure they clear everything. Right, now the wheels are on, it's actually starting to look something like a little trailer. I need to sort the hitch out at the front still, find a way of fitting that little eyelet in the front. I'm gonna fit some sort of little jockey stand as well, so it'll sit nice when it's not on the truck. Also, I think with these green bits underneath on the JGRC, I might try and paint them black in some way, shape or form. And then we've got a third wheel here. I might try and fit a spare wheel on the front of the trailer, don't know yet. See if I can find somewhere fitting that. But anyway, let's crack on. So I sort that hitch out at the front. Right, that's the jockey stand and hitch finished. For the jockey stand, I had a set of tiny little spanners. They're useless really. So I took one off the set, cleaned it up, and it's made a really nice little jockey stand, actually, tiny spanner. You can just fold it up and down out of the way for obviously when it's on the back of the truck. For the hitch, we've just used one of them self-tapping eyelets, and I basically mixed up, it's like almost like a chemical metal type material. Shoved that in the end of the frame rails, screwed it in, put some super glue in there as well, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. It's nice and secure. Now then, I think the next job is I'm going to paint the rear bumper black to match the rest of the chassis. Not too bothered about these bits here because you don't really see them. And I'm thinking of just adding a couple of dummy fuel tanks on there just to finish it off really, and paint these black and attach them to the bottom of the bed. Right then, this is where we're at. I finished painting the bumper on the trailer black so it fits in a lot better with the black chassis. I've also got a couple of fuel tanks here off an old, I think that's off a B24 and a B36. I've just painted them black. I'm going to try and fix them or stick them somewhere onto the trailer just to give it look like it's got a bit of storage and a spare fuel tank, just to make it look a bit more interesting basically. So we're going to stick them on. I'll wait till that little bit of silver paint's dried on the top cap, stick these on and mechanically screw them on. Right then, that is pretty much it. I've screwed and glued the 2 fuel tanks on underneath. It just makes it look as though it's got a bit of storage. I've got like a fuel tank there. Makes it look a bit more like an off-road sort of trail truck. I've also sort of painted the hitch red at the back, and I think that's pretty much it really. So there we have it, one sort of scale trailer made out of bits and pieces. As ever, if you've enjoyed the video and you found it of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button for more similar future content. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you again very soon. Thank you.